If you've been following the news cycle lately, you must have come across the Nupur Sharma controversy. This obviously isn't the first controversy of its kind. There have been a number of these, the basis of which have been religious misunderstandings, misinterpretations. This got me thinking about another controversial law which was intended to be brought in to end all religious divide. In 1948, when the Constitution of India was being written and the values of pluralism were being discussed, there was one social law that was a major bone of contention. The debate went on for months and didn't reach a conclusion. In the end, it was compromised. This law was the Uniform Civil Code. One civil code common to all. This would have meant the abolishment of personal laws, which are essentially based on our religious scriptures, texts, etc. A number of these laws were harsh on minorities, especially women. Sharia law denounced women of inheritance, certain Hindu laws deprived women of remarriage. So, the Constituent Assembly at the time wanted to abolish the limit of such laws. They wanted to govern India by the constitution so that the same law applied to every citizen, irrespective of their religion, sex, or sexual orientation. One nation, one law. But it wasn't to be. Why? India has always been a diverse country. It has always housed multiple religions, cultures, ethnicities. There was intense opposition to this law, both from Islamic fundamentalists and Orthodox Hindus. They felt a uniform civil law would diminish their authority. They called it a threat to religious freedom and warned of social unrest in the country. Thus, the founding fathers of our constitution retreated and made the proposal optional. The state shall endeavor to secure for the citizen a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. It was decided to be implemented when India was ready for such a law. 7 decades have passed since. Welcome to the Taking It Slow podcast, and today let's talk about the Uniform Civil Code. So, what is this law? It is said that its origins can be traced back to the Roman Empire. They used to govern by the single law and not religious texts. The US Constitution is another example. It says all men are created equal. American law treats all citizens as equal and all of them must follow the same law. That's not the case in India. Laws here are based on religion, caste, geography, and culture, especially inheritance rights. For example, states in the Northeast are governed by personal law and not mainstream laws. These laws apparently retain the culture of the land no matter how archaic they may be. Then we come to religion. Certain personal laws related to Muslims are directed by the Quran. Mainly, they cover these four areas: marriage, divorce, inheritance, and custody of children. Then there's the Sharia law. The Sharia law determines the number of women's rights, such as alimony, adoption, and inheritance. This leaves women at the mercy of the All Indian Muslim Personal Law Board, which is run mostly by men. It was initially supported by the British. Why? To divide and rule. They wanted to create a separate sect which would be at friction with the other sects and they would have ruled. Unfortunately, this has still continued. There have been attempts to eradicate it though. The father of Indian Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Pandit Nehru both tried to eradicate it. Dr. Ambedkar even said this. He said, I personally do not understand why religion should be given the vast, expansive jurisdiction so as to cover the whole of life and to prevent the legislature from encroaching upon that field. After all, what are we having this liberty for? We are having this liberty in order to reform our social system, which is so full of inequities and discrimination. Nehru agreed with all this, but he felt that the Muslims who had stayed back in India just post the partition might feel marginalized if their personal laws were abolished immediately. So he said something on the lines of this. He said, I want to prepare the ground for it, and this kind of thing is one of the methods of preparing the ground. This kind of thing, he said. What was he referring to? He was referring to the Hindu code bills, where certain personal laws were abolished, and he said it was the first step to bringing in the UCC. But nothing happened post that. In the 80s, it gathered momentum once again with the Shah Bano case. A woman appealed for justice after being divorced by her husband after a marriage of 40 years. The husband refused to pay alimony, and according to the Muslim personal law, she was entitled to only 3 months of alimony. 3 months of alimony after 40 years of marriage. So she went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in her favor and she was awarded maintenance. This in turn led to widespread protests across the country. These were protests by Muslim clerics and politicians as they took to the streets asking for the verdict to be nullified. Rajiv Gandhi was the then PM, and to pacify the protests, his government passed something called the Muslim Women Protection Act. It overturned the court's verdict and restricted the right to alimony of Muslim women to only 90 days. The Supreme Court said a common civil code will help the cause of national integration by removing desperate loyalties to laws that have conflicting ideologies. This was 3 decades back. Since then, there have been multiple instances like this, but no government has been able to implement the Uniform Civil Code. The present government as well has promised it in their manifesto. As you can clearly see, they are committed to bringing in a uniform civil code. They've been in power for 8 years. They have implemented a lot of things on their manifesto, but this is still an item which has remained pending. The critics say it is a move against secularism and it wants to target the Muslims. There are fears in the tribal communities and the northeastern sects as well. They say it is a majoritarian move to impose the Hindu laws. Opponents of the UCC don't agree. They say it will bring in uniformity, uplift the women, help oppressed religious communities. Case in point being Goa, the only Indian state with the UCC. While British ruled India, Goa was under the Portuguese control till 1961 and they brought in the UCC and it was applicable to all. There are also multiple Islamic countries that have reformed personal laws as per their constitution. They've abolished polygamy, triple talaq, etc. And it's not as if Islam is the only religion with less than fair personal laws. There is gender bias for inheritance and Hindu personal laws. Laws pertaining to succession are unequal. Even Sikhs, Jains, and Parsis are governed by the same laws as Hindus, no matter how distinct their cultures are. Is it time for India to put an end to this? It isn't easy because of the misuse by politicians, and the chances of misinterpretation are very high. The best way to go about this would be to build consensus with experts from all the communities and cultures, pull out their best practices, make them applicable for modern times, and unite them under one UCC. This was today's episode of the Taking It Slow podcast. If you didn't know about the Uniform Civil Code, now you know. Leave your comments and feedbacks in the comment section below. Like the video, share it in your circles, and if you're new, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, keep taking it slow.